Good morning, cranky old patriot Rob Harrington. Today's lesson class is about Zionists. Who are the Zionists? All right, think about this. The Zionists are they're old traffickers. They're the merchant class. Go back to about the 1200s, 1300 years ago, all right? Well after the death of Christ, all right? You had three predominant religions in Europe: Catholicism, Judaism, not so much the Muslims, but that was a later afterthought that the Zionists came up with to infiltrate countries, to dilute their population, to weaken their population so they could eventually take over their population. That's what's happening in Europe and the United States right now. That's why we've had this mass immigration thing going on in Europe and the United States. It was by design, okay? I've got other videos on that. So let's go back to the year 1200 or so. Who was going to Oxford University in the year 1200 or so? Well, it would have been rich European guys, right? Mainly men, probably all men. I don't know of any context where I could say women were going to Oxford. They didn't really have a liberated women's thing going on back then. So let's say they were rich boys whose dads were merchants, all right? Who were the merchants back then? The Bible and the Quran forbade usury, the lending of money with interest especially. And so the kings and queens who had to do all their wars against their other European counterparts, you know, you got France, Spain, England, the Dutch, the Portuguese, trying to dominate the world. Well, what they did was they had to build boats and raise navies to maraud each other, to steal from each other. Well, the only people who had all the money by the 1200s were these traffickers. They were gypsies, let's say from, Eastern Europe, you know, like Ukraine, that area. And what they would do, if you're a caravan owner and it spent 10 years of your life to build any wealth in your little part of the world, and you wanted to bring your goods across Europe, and you were raided by these marauding gypsy killers who could take all your stuff, kill you, take all your stuff, your life's work away from you in 10 minutes. Well, that's the best job on earth if you're an evil psychopath, is to be a thief and to be a trafficker. Because now you just got rich in 10 minutes. So you do that hundreds and hundreds or thousands of times, you become very wealthy. So much so that when you then steal the identities of the people you stole from, and there were so many different languages floating around Europe at the time, right? At that point, you could blend in and say, well, we're a Jew, we're Jewish. What a perfect disguise. Because who was the only religion allowed to loan money, which gave them access to the gold that they could clip the parts of the gold off of and steal that way, or hold your gold, or transport your gold, the merchant class, the traffickers, right? To loan money, like Rothschild did between Napoleon's France and England. I don't know where I get this. You got to do your own research. But supposedly Rothschild made in today's money about $1 billion on that war. And he gained both of them. He played both sides of the table. If he had $1 billion today's money based upon fraudulent misrepresentation of who was actually winning or who won that war, and you'll have to research the story on that to learn it better, that's brilliant. So what they finally had to do was invent, who are they? So they came up with the word Zionist, because it's biblical, right? Just like, you know, they call you an anti-Semite when 90% of the Semites are actually Palestinian by DNA and geographical history. It's just a word game. So I think that the moral of this story is they're not really Zionists. They're just filthy rich bastards. They're criminal, psychotic people that use the Jewish faith as a straw man to hide behind, to garner the pity and the mercy and the victim card so they can get away with more murder, more theft of properties, more identity theft, and just be, that's why they own everything on the planet. It's because they're thieves and liars. So, in summary for this video, instead of calling them Zionists, just call them what they are. They're filthy rich bastards. The filthy rich bastards run the planet, and they have for 900 to 1,000 years. And they're always going to run the planet until you change this. You can't bless Israel, who's committing genocide and rape and murder and property theft, and be a true Christian. You can't. So let's quit using the word Zionist and replace it with filthy rich bastard. And then that'll clear your thinking process up. That'll help Americans figure out, well, who are our masters? Well, they're filthy rich bastards. Hence fascism, corporatism, evil. Do you get it yet? Good luck, America.